Hey, good morning, Burnett Church. Welcome to Church Online for this week. We've got an exciting morning for you. We're going to introduce you to some new members of our staff team just a little bit later. Before we do that, as always, we're going to worship and sing together. So wherever you are, we encourage you to join in, get connected, let the Holy Spirit draw you into worship this morning, and we'll see you again in a little while.
From the earth to the sky, let it rise, from the dark into light, now alive, we are here to lift you up, here to sing a song of love, here to give you, God, what you are worthy of. Here we stand, here we wait, have your way, every hand in this place. God we raise, we are here to lift you up, here to sing a song of love, here to give you, God, what you are worthy of. Oh, holy rock, reaching for heaven, I praise poured out with reckless abandon. Our worship, God, is wholly yours. We are wholly yours. Forever worthy, is the Lamb who was slain. Oh, forever worthy, is the Lamb who was slain. In this holy rock, reaching for heaven, our praise poured out with reckless abandon. Our worship, God, is wholly yours. In this holy rock, reaching for heaven, our praise poured out with reckless abandon. Our worship, God, is wholly yours. We are wholly yours. On the earth, the holy rock, we're lifting up a holy rock. You know this one at home, sing it with us. On the earth, the holy rock, we're lifting up a holy rock. On the earth, the holy rock, we're lifting up a holy rock. On the earth, the holy rock, we're lifting up a holy rock.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failure I tried to hide. it was my due. Till I met you. When you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, when you called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy. Chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. When you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day.
Introduce to you the latest members to join our staff. I'm going to have them come and join me here in just a second, but that song for me, for so many years, Melissa and I have prayed that God would just bring another couple into our life that we could do ministry with. We've thought about it and dreamt about it. When we started to get ready to come to Burnett, we started to pray for it. And to me, there's no higher compliment that you could pay somebody in ministry than to say, you've chosen to build your life on Jesus. And there's the first qualification for somebody that you would invite onto your church staff. So I'm going to have Jordan and Quinn come. We feel as though God's been very gracious to our church family in bringing Jordan and Quinn. Mel, do you want to come up as well? And it's kind of a double blessing because I don't know how many of you follow us acutely on social media, but we announced Jordan was joining us as our associate pastor of Gathering and Connections. What does that mean? Well, that means that everything that happens around here that isn't like right here needs to be managed by and isn't with the kids,
needs to be managed by somebody. There is a whole lot of threads and things and little details like microphones being turned on and all of those other kinds of details. And, people want to get connected to small groups, and how do I do that? And sometimes Pastor Tim's not the most reliable person to ask about that on a Sunday morning. A few of you I know have come and said, hey, can I tell you something? And I said, yeah, but can you email me immediately following telling me it? Because if you tell me on Sunday, it's going to go, because there's so many details to have in check around here. And Jordan just has this heart to build the local church. As I've gotten to know him, his passion is to see the local church equipped and engaged in doing the work of the gospel. So he's here to help us do that. And then he also, like me, I often tell people when I meet people, I'm like, man, if you think you like me, just wait till you meet my wife. Because she is so much nicer and more talented than I am. And that might be true of Quinn to Jordan. I don't know. I'm not saying, but we're really, really blessed, I think, as a church to get a couple who's engaged in ministry. And Quinn is diving headfirst. She's got her own gig going on at Pacific Academy over in Langley. She does development and, spiritual development for the students there. But she's also going to help our youth do spiritual development here over the next number of months as well, in tandem with Melissa. Yeah, so we are blessed, church. Someday I will take the time to tell you the full story about how this whole crazy thing happened over the last month. But there are so many bits and pieces. It's like, things happen in your life and you just know God was a part of it, right? Because it couldn't have come together any other way. It was so bizarre and beautiful and fortuitous and opportunistic that it couldn't have been anything but God doing that for us. And so we want to celebrate them today. We want to pray for them. We want to commission them into ministry here at our church. And so look, I'm just going to ask, would the church stand? And if you're comfortable, you could reach a hand out. It's COVID, so we can't have a whole bunch of people run up here and be in close proximity and lay hands on them and all that stuff that the church does. So we're going to do it through the air and trust that the Holy Spirit can do that, right? If you're comfortable with that, if you're not, that's okay. But if you're comfortable, just reach a hand out. I'm going to pray for Jordan and Quinn, and then we'll move on with our service this morning. God, we thank you today for what you're doing here in this local church. That you are faithful, that you're good, that you have good plans for us as a community, as a tribe of believers seeking passionately after Jesus Christ. And we thank you that you've brought Jordan and Quinn here for such a time as this, with skills and attributes and passions and desires that we need as a church. We thank you for them, and we pray a blessing on them as they get to know this group of people that Melissa and I are coming to love more and more every day. These good people that you've called together to be a family united under Jesus here at Burnett Church. Give him grace and favor. Bless the relationships that he helps to create, and make the work of his hands fruitful for our church and for your kingdom most of all. We're also deeply thankful for Quinn, for the gifts and unique talents that you've given her to serve the church, and the passion that you've given her to bless your people. So we pray that you would bless her. You would bless her work here at Burnett, yes, but you would bless her work at Pacific Academy as she has the opportunity to speak into hundreds of young lives every week. God, we send them to the work that you have for them to do amongst us and in our city and in our province and beyond. And we ask for your favor and blessing in our going. Thank you, Jesus, for your faithfulness and goodness to us. And all God's people said, Amen. Awesome. We're going to put them to work immediately and have them do the announcements.
And so at this time, I am going to dismiss all the kids to follow Pastor Melissa off to Kids Church. It'll be awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be with you, Burnett. It is such a joy and an honor to be here. And so I just feel like I should introduce myself again. Tim said my name is Jordan, and he's correct. My name is Jordan, and I'm excited to be your associate pastor and to serve you. The first thing I just want to say, at any point, if you want to connect with me over the next couple weeks, months, however long you feel comfortable, whenever you want to reach out, just send me an email, jordan@burnettchurch.com. Send me an email. I'd love to either make you a cup of coffee or set up a time to go for coffee with you. Something you'll learn about me is coffee is very near and dear to my heart because of the conversations that it allows to happen. And so I would love to take you or make you a cup of coffee, whatever you feel comfortable with. Just send me an email. I'd love to connect with you in the next little bit. And so, but one of the exciting things that we have rolling out here at Burnett Church is we want to streamline and make your lives a little bit easier. So we are partnering with our databasing company. It's called Planning Center, and there's something called the Church Center app, and we're going to show a video in a minute. But the Church Center app, if you would go on to whether your Google Store or Apple iPhone or your iTunes Store or the App Store, and if you just search Church Center app, it'll pop up a little app. And if you just download it, and when you open it and you click it, you can select the church and the location, and, pick Burnett Church, because hopefully that's the one that you guys want to continue coming to now that I'm here. And when you click Church Center and you click Burnett, for parents, this is going to make your lives a lot easier. You can actually prepare your kids' check-in before you go to the kids and check in on the iPads that we have there. You can actually set up your kids' check-in, and all you do is scan a QR code and print out your little tags for your children. And so that makes life a lot easier. If you want to give directly on the app, you can do that. If you want to join groups, life groups that we have coming out directly on the app. And so it's just called Church Center app, and it just is, the whole point of it is just to try to streamline our process and make life a little bit easier so that everything is just in one place. The best part is the app's free. And so I'm not gonna talk any longer. I've taken enough of your time, but I'm really excited to meet you and get to know you over the next little bit. But we're just going to show a quick video of the Church Center app, and then Pastor Tim is going to come and preach. And so we'll see you soon, church.
That was abrupt. So goes things sometimes. That mic is super naughty today. What's going on with that? Man, wants to betray us left, right, and center. Hey, one of the things that people have said once or twice as I've gotten onboarded here at Burnett is that communications have not always been our strong suit. That might be putting it lightly, according to a few people. We are desperately trying to help you guys get connected to the information that you need. So there is now a newsletter that goes out every single week to tell you what's going on in the church. We're getting this app ready. So now we need your help. Like the day where the blame has been shifted to us is now we're putting the ball in your guys' court. If you need help with that at all, we realize that technology is in various states of comfort for each person in the room. That's okay. Jordan's on board. We're going to get our info desk back up and running real soon. And there you'll be able to go, help me. I don't know how to put this app on my phone. Great, we'll help you. I don't know how to connect it to my account. We'll help you. All that stuff is coming, and we're really, really excited about it. Okay, so question for you. How many times this week have you heard the phrase in your house, "It's not fair"? Anybody? Anybody heard that this week? All the people with kids have heard it of a certain age. That's right. It's not fair. And you know what? Here's what's hard. That's actually mostly true. Like, life is actually not fair, is it? Sometimes I remind my kids, the world hasn't been fair since the Garden of Eden. when they say that to me. It's a quippy little statement, but actually, it's true. We live in a world that is not fair. And how do we often respond to a lack of fairness? Well, I know in my house, my kids usually try to play mom and dad off each other. They don't get what they want from me. They come and they say, Dad, can I have whatever it is they want? Or they had a snack earlier. Why can't I have a snack again, now? And I say, no, son, it's not time to have a snack. It's always my son. No, son, it's not time to have a snack. He runs to mom because she's in a different room and didn't hear the conversation that we had, tries to get his own way anyway. We often try to get ahead, and it speaks to our human, broken, sinful condition. And in some sense, because the world was created in fairness. That statement, the world hasn't been fair since the Garden of Eden. Why? Because the Garden of Eden was actually fair, according to God. Everyone and everything had everything that they needed in that state. And then sin entered the world, and it was broken, and man was removed from the garden. You know how the story goes. And fairness was lost. In some real sense, our Christian faith is a pursuit of the return of fairness. You follow me there, right? The story arc of the scripture is that what we enjoyed in the garden is going to be reclaimed in a city under the rule and kingship of Jesus. And so in some very real sense, the Bible's pursuit, our pursuit, is this pursuit of fairness. But we live, even in the church, in a state of unfairness sometimes. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but listen to what James has to say. This is part 2 in a series that we're doing out of the book of James. We've called Not So Simple, because a lot of the things that James says in this little tiny book are very, very straightforward, but very, very difficult. They're not hard to understand, but they're difficult to put into practice. And so as we examine this letter that James wrote for the early church, probably the first letter that was circulated among the early churches, we're looking for ways in which it can inform our life today. And the big idea that James gives us here is that we don't play favorites and we pursue fairness. God's mission is far too big for that. Listen to what he says in James chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus must not show favoritism. It's important for today's message to know that some translations, I'm taking the majority of this out of the NIV, some translations say prejudice instead of favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and then a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand over there, or sit on the floor beside me, have you not discriminated amongst yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? There are a number of things I think we could pull out of this short scripture. And probably the most obvious one is that we would care for the poor. It's right there for everyone to see. Plain and simple. But you know, my little girl, Layla, who's not so little anymore. Okay, my teenage daughter, Layla, just started taking voice lessons again this week. And I had the chance to jump in, and for those of you who don't know, I used to play music a little bit every once in a while, and so I jumped in, and I kind of like to listen to her sing, and she was singing a song that we sing in the car, or she sings in the car all the time. And she's doing a really good job. Actually, I complimented her on it a couple of weeks ago. I said, honey, I think you're singing that song really well. Maybe that's why she chose it. I don't know, but I come in and I hear her, and there's two very distinct vocal parts. One's quite low, and then the chorus hits and it kind of goes up. And when it goes up, she's nailing it. But the verses, she's a little pitchy on and needs some work. And so I said to her, hey, honey, as you are practicing this week, remember that it will feel good to practice the parts that you're very good at. but you're already pretty good at those parts. And so the amount that you will get better at singing this song by practicing those things you're already good at is quite small. Work on the things that you're not doing well the most. Don't ignore the things that you're doing well, but pay most attention to the things that you're not doing well. And in my short tenure and relationship with Burnett Church, I think Burnett Church does serving the poor pretty darn well. Because when I came through the doors, people told me about the MAP program that you hosted. People told me about the Christmas hampers you put together. People told me about the ministry that builds and gives out sandwiches that meets in the gym every single month. And then in other places, on other weeks of the month. I think Burnett Church is doing, at the very most conservative, an above average job at serving the poor. By the way, if you're the kind of person that really loves to serve the poor, we have opportunities for you to do that. All you have to do is send us an email at info@burnettchurch.com. And whether it's something that we administer or the kind of ministry that we're friendly with and we partner with, we will connect you to the right thing. So if you want to make sandwiches on a Saturday to give out to the poor here in Maple Ridge, we have a way for you to do that. Please, please, please send us an email. It would be our joy and privilege to make that connection for you so that you can help serve in that way. But if we're already doing serving the poor really well, it begs the question, what else might we gain from studying this particular scripture? How would this maybe apply more acutely and help us build up some things that we're weak in? And I understand in saying that, I want to be clear, I'm not saying that Burnett Church is necessarily weak in these areas. I'm saying that as individuals, these are areas that we also need to check. Because if we just check how we're doing serving the poor, we might miss all the opportunities that God has to transform and shape us today. So I think that there are at least two other applications, two other issues that we want to look at this morning. And the first is purpose. Why are we here? See, there's a little nuance in this story that if you just read it in a cursory sort of way, you'll go right over it because it's one of those things that would have made sense to first century people but doesn't click with us. So when James says, if a man with a gold ring, okay, wait, that's a very specific detail, isn't it? Like a man with a gold ring, what does that mean? Well, a gold ring in James' day, this isn't a gold ring, but a gold ring in James' day was a status symbol in Roman society. And so what James is saying is if somebody comes into your gathering and you realize that that person, through who they are, might advance your own personal goals, you've missed the point of why we're here. Because we're not here necessarily to advance our status in the world. And it's very, very easy to miss why we're here because we love the people that we connect with. And so sometimes this isn't even like, oh, there's a business opportunity for me here. This is just advancing yourself socially. I want to make a connection with people. And that's a good thing. But the question that we're asking this morning is, why are we really here? Because the scriptures are really clear. Let's just take Isaiah 56:7. My house is a house of prayer. When we come here, our connection to Jesus should be our number one focus. And nothing and no one should take us away from that. Amen? There are so many places that we can go and just make a social connection, but the beauty of the church is that social connection happens while we're connecting with Jesus, and He does something miraculous and special with our connections that can't happen anywhere else. So, when James says, don't let the guy with the gold ring distract you, I think it's a call for us to keep Jesus at the center of the reason that we're here. And keep God's mission at the center of why we're here. Because even that social nuance, even the I just want to see my friends. Do you know how many people walk in and out of a church desperately hoping to connect with God's people that get missed because the only thing God's people are interested in is talking to each other? And we do not come to this place with a sense of mission. We do not come to this place going, God might want to use me today to connect somebody to him. And so I am going to keep my eyes up, my ears out, and go, I don't recognize that person. That's a really, really simple thing. You don't even have to embarrass yourself, right? Because sometimes I think we're afraid to be like, oh, are you new at Burnett? This happened to me when we were in Ontario. I had been around for about 7 months. I played guitar on stage every week. For the first 7 months I was in the church. The first week I didn't play guitar on stage. I sat right about where Christine is in our sanctuary. And this couple turned around and they looked at me and go, oh, you must be new here. Don't say, oh, you must be new here to people. Say, oh, how long have you been at Burnett for? Really simple. Put that in your memory bank. Stop saying, oh, you must be new here. Because with masks on, it's even worse. I apologize to all the new faces that I met this morning. Because you know what's going to happen? I'm going to meet you again without your mask on. And I'm going to have totally forgotten that we met the first time. Because you look like a totally different human being. And I apologize in advance. I'm weak and broken and need your forgiveness. There are people coming here every week who need somebody from our church to welcome them warmly and let them know that the kingdom of heaven is ready to embrace them. They've either never been to church before, not been here for a long time, or just feeling like they're not connected. So if you see somebody off on their own, a friendly wave, don't have to be overzealous or weird or awkward. But if we're here, first for Jesus' glory and second for his mission, then even our relationships at the church need to come second to God's glory and his purpose in this place. How do you get ready for all that God might want to do here? Here's my super practical tip. Be prepared. Be prepared when you come into this place. Listen to Psalm chapter 15 for a quick second. Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? Okay, so what's David saying here? The holy mountain is the place where the people went to worship God. So who may come to worship? The one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from their heart, whose tongue utters no slander, who does not do wrong to a neighbor and cast no slur on others, who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord, who keeps an oath even when it hurts and does not change their mind, who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept a bribe against the innocent. Whoever does these things will not be shaken. So you're driving in your car. That's a lot of business to do with the Lord before you come to worship. And it's not saying you have to be perfect to come. In this framework, it would have meant take care of your sacrifices before you come to worship. Make sure that you're right with God. Okay? In our day and age, we're free from that law and that process. But we're not free from the necessity of taking stock of where we are and where we've been before we come to worship an almighty, holy, righteous God. My best advice would be to take a page out of the Jewish handbook where Sabbath starts the night before. Have you ever stopped on Saturday evening to just get a little bit ready for what's coming on Sunday morning? One of my mentors said this to me years ago, and it profoundly changed how I interact with Sunday morning services, because previously, I was trying to bundle my kids in the car and race out the door, or worse yet, get there at 6:30 in the morning, bleary-eyed, and this is to play music. God bless all the musicians who show up here so early to get ready. And it's too much on a Sunday morning to make sure I'm dialed in for worship. But if I spent 20 minutes the night before with the scriptures, reading, praying, preparing, praying for all of my brothers and sisters who are going to be here, praying that this place would be a place where the Spirit of God is evident and real, man, it changes how we worship. The second thing that I think that this passage points us towards, and this is why I said it's important for us to have multiple translations in mind, because if you play favorites with prejudice, it becomes way spicier. Doesn't it? I felt the room get tense. So we're going to talk about something like serious and real in our world today. And I'm going to let you know that I do this with fear and trembling, and I'm hoping to walk a very small tightrope of safety down the middle. I'm sure you'll email me if I don't. It's all right. Look, prejudice is real, and we're all born with it. Do you know that you have this little almond-sized thing in your brain called an amygdala? In fact, you have two of them on either side, and it dictates your flight or fight response. You've heard of that before, right? Okay? And so studies show that if people are shown a picture of somebody who's different than them, your amygdala immediately lights up and tells you to be afraid. I love when the Bible has a multi-thousand-year jump on science. I love it. In this particular case, the idea that we are born in a sinful state is not difficult to imagine. We are all born with prejudice. And James, a few verses down in chapter 2, calls prejudice a sin. So it's not a hard jump to get there. We are all born in a sinful state. If you've been around church for any length of time, you know Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fall short with the glory of God. But if our biology plays a part in how sinful we are right from the very beginning, God is also gracious enough to make sure we're not stuck there. Our biology also provides us a way out. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind, and God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it." What does that mean? Your brain, yes, was developed with an amygdala. It was also developed with an incredible amount of plasticity, which means that you can reshape the way that your brain works. God has provided a way for us to change our perspective. And that way is the way of Jesus. It's practicing the kinds of behaviors that Jesus calls us to. It is a lifelong, everyday, all the time pursuit. Sometimes I tell my children, look, if you don't practice behaving well at home, how am I going to trust you to behave outside? You have to practice. You actually have to do some of the things that we said. So it's not enough to say, "Oh, Dad, I'll be polite when I go to my friend's house." Should you be polite for 5 minutes at our house? To your brothers and sisters, maybe? We all have things that we need to put into place in our lives that Jesus has called us to in order to reshape our natural disposition. And of course, ultimately, we need Jesus and his sacrifice. We need to accept his life and death and resurrection on the cross to ultimately deal with our sin. But in the working out of our salvation, there are things that we do to change. How? Two things. First, let's get Proverbs 4:7 under our eyes. It means, though it cost you all you have, get understanding. Be educated, because we live in the age of misinformation. We live in a beautifully dangerous time in history when it comes to how you think and what you think. And you know what the biggest killer is? Where's my phone? Social media. This is your killer. Do you know, scientifically speaking, data supports that the more time you spend on social media, the more likely you are to believe things that are untrue. Does this surprise anybody? It shouldn't. Like this week alone on social media, I read these two things. You ready for this? It's amazing. Did you know that vegetables are ruining your gut? So I know that ever since you were a little kid, your mom and dad said, eat your vegetables or you won't grow up healthy. That's totally wrong. 100% it is ruining your gut. Your gut will not work the right way if you eat vegetables. Is that true? It was on social media. It was put out by a doctor to sell you a diet plan. I also found this one, and I deeply hope this is true, but I'm pretty sure it's not. That there is a particular fruit. I don't want to unweigh the stock market, so I'm not going to tell you which one it is. But there is a particular fruit that you can eat that will melt off all the COVID weight that we've put on. Praise Jesus if that's true. Don't ask me how the fruit knows that your weight is only from COVID, or if it will stop when it gets to the end of your COVID weight. In which case, man, we should all went gangbusters even more. But does that seem true? Of course it's not true. Of course it's not true. But doctor put it out on social media, so it must be true. Guys, our faith is not an excuse to check your brain at the door. Christians should be people who pursue truth, shouldn't we? Not opinion, not theory, but truth. Like there are ways to figure out. I can actually go and read a scientific journal and ask it, are vegetables ruining my gut? And find out from a very reputable, nonpartisan source that in fact that is false. Scientifically speaking, that is false. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, but it seems like we've given ourselves excuses to check our brains at the door. But guys, the church is called to pursue unity, truth, love. Are the things that we're consuming helping us to be more loving, more unified, and more full of truth? Or not? We live in an age in which I think that Jesus would tell us that, look, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. Don't check your brains at the door. Here's the second thing. If we want to overcome prejudice, if we want to be a people, and all of this to me, guys, I mean, you're sick of hearing me talk about being on mission, but I'm just going to keep hammering it home because I think this is why we exist. So if we're going to be the kind of people who don't know Jesus can come in, can connect, can hear, can learn, and can give their lives to Jesus, and that's work that Jesus would be kind enough to do through us, then we have to work on things like prejudice. We have to be an accepting community, not of everything that people do, but of who they are and the value that they have in the eyes of Jesus Christ. So, if there is a group of people that you find it particularly hard to connect with, I am not going to name names, but go ahead and spend 5 seconds thinking about somebody who it's hard for you to connect with right now. The litany of different causes and voices and things that have happened in the last 18 or so months should bring at least one to our mind. Because we're all there. You don't believe it? You know, there are tests you can take online. I took one this week to tell you how prejudiced you actually are. That's a spicy conversation for you to have with the person in the mirror. But if you don't believe me, take one of the tests. They will light up your world with things that we're unaware of. So, how would we go about becoming less? Here's number 2. Make it personal. I would challenge you, if there is a person or a group or a perspective or a behavior that you find it very difficult to connect with, be brave, be intentional, make a connection with somebody on the other side of the fence from you. Seek to know and love them, not to convert them, but to understand them and to show them grace and mercy as they extend the same thing to you because they don't agree with your perspective either. My grandma Norma was about this tall. I used to put my arm on her head all the time when I got big enough. She was a spitfire. Somebody whose personality dramatically betrayed the size of their body. You ever met somebody like that? They just take you by surprise because they're like this small, but really they have a giant's personality. This is my grandma Norma. I loved her deeply. Norma and my dad and their family grew up in Halifax. My dad was born in 55. Norma was substantially older than that. They grew up in Halifax. And, you know, Nova Scotian school curriculum will tell you lots about how tense relationships between whites and blacks were around the mid-century in the 1900s. There's the whole Africville story and displacement, and like there's just all kinds of stuff. So I won't go into all the details. Suffice it to say that being a fairly poor white person in Halifax at the mid-century point after the war did not set you up very well to be a person of tolerance towards people who were a different color than you. And my grandma was not very ashamed when I was young to tell us exactly what she thought of people different than her. What was really interesting and awkward was that our church that my dad pastored when I was a kid in Nova Scotia was a very, very small church. But for some reason, it was like the melting pot of cultures. And we were probably 30 to 40% African Canadian when I was growing up. And so when my grandma would come visit, and she would come to church because she was polite, she wasn't a believer, but she would come because my dad was preaching. She wanted to support Billy. And so she would come to church. And this spitfire of a woman who always had a joke and always had a smile on her face and was always loving life would be stiff as a board. And that would get even worse because like our best friends, my mom and dad's best friends, they just moved in their retirement from Ontario back to Nova Scotia so they could be close, particularly to this couple, my Uncle Bobby and Aunt Arlene, people of color. And so we would go on day trips and Norma would come with us. I mean, the first few of them did not go very well. That spitfire of a lady was transformed by her own prejudice. You know, there's this thing called common group theory. And I guess this is what we're drawing on here. If you spend time with people who are different than you, your amygdala will stop firing like crazy. You can reshape and remold the way that your natural tendencies draw you. And so I saw in Norma common group theory, the idea that if you spend time with people who are not like you, it will change your prejudices. I saw it happen before my eyes. I can remember the first time we were walking into a mall, and my Uncle Bobby walking up the stairs, and he tripped, and that spitfire of a lady lanced a quip at him from across the room, and everybody stopped. You know, one of those moments where you're like, can I believe what's happening right now? a joke in his direction, everybody froze for a minute, and then everybody died laughing. And from that moment on, my perception of her relationship with Bobby and Darlene and all of our friends changed. She had spent enough time in the company of somebody who didn't make her comfortable to change the way that she felt and perceived about them. I have my own experiences in this. I didn't want to get distracted by, again, some of the potentially spicy examples. But let me tell you that I have experienced in my life the same thing that Norma did, that when you spend time with people who are different than you, your perspective will change on who they are. Church, our heart has to be that of Romans chapter 10, verse 14. How then can they call on the one they haven't believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? Now, preaching in this case means orating like this. But you know, our lives are the greatest sermon that God will ever write through us. And when we spend time with people, and we are genuine about our connection with them, when we allow our prejudices to melt away, when we allow God to do work through our lives because we're so focused on who He is and what He wants to do in the world, suddenly your life is a sermon that everybody's listening to, drawing other people through the power of the Holy Spirit to Jesus. This is our cry as a people. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? Don't play favorites. It's not so simple. So let's pray and ask Jesus for help. God, we believe that in your Son, we have been provided every opportunity and power required for life transformation. That although our natural tendencies betray us day after day, you have given us in Jesus a way, the way, to be reshaped, remolded, and used in the kingdom of heaven. We pray today that you would help us all to embrace the difficult, spicy, uncomfortable areas in our life that we still need to put at your feet and go, God, help me not to play favorites. Help me not to show prejudice. Help me to be used by you. We ask in Jesus' mighty and holy name. Amen.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, and you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. God, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord.
Well, Burnett, that is our online service for this week. We're really glad that you came, that you connected with us this morning online, and hope you're excited about all the new things that are happening around Burnett. We're excited to see more and more of you as time goes on. We know that COVID is still a thing, and so for some of you that means discomfort with being in person. That's okay. We still want to hear from you and connect to you as much as possible. If you have a minute to send us a quick email, let us know how you're doing. Let us know how we can pray for you. Let us know if we can support you in any way, or if you have any questions, that'd be awesome. You can always email the office at info@burnettchurch.com, or you can email me directly, tim@burnettchurch.com. Have a great week, everyone. God bless.
Thank